Well, I lost my job during COVID.
Stay out of harm's way. I stay on the streets. I sleep in the park benches, bus stops. I walk.
In the heart of America, Ottumwa was forged on iron rails and toil.
Luke,
Yes,
you're homeless.
yes. I've been homeless a little over 7.5 months. I'm also a Vietnam combat vet, awaiting the process on the approval of my Section 8. I had an apartment, and I recently lost that apartment because I went through major surgery.
Yet now, men like John, a 60-year-old veteran who once labored on those tracks, sleep in tents by the river's edge. This documentary reveals not just one man's struggle, but a rising homeless in America crisis quietly gripping our town. Ottumwa has always been a community that bands together when times are hard. But if that still holds true, why are more of our neighbors falling through the gaps? The numbers we can't ignore. How did a town like Ottumwa, Iowa, proud, diligent, and steeped in history, find itself grappling with a growing crisis that many still shy away from discussing? It's not a topic you catch on the nightly news. It rarely surfaces in daily chats. But in 2025, homelessness in America, right here in Ottumwa, has reached a point we can no longer dismiss. The latest count shows 779 individuals in the area are without a home. That's the highest in years. And this number isn't just rising, it's been steadily increasing year after year. Each of those figures represents a person, someone's parent, someone's child, someone who once had stability but stumbled and couldn't recover. What's even tougher to confront is that over 100 of these individuals have no shelter at all. They're not just staying with friends or sleeping in cars. They're fully exposed to the sun, the chill, the rain, the night. Resting in parks behind stores, under bridges, in a community like Ottumwa that should never be okay.
Nowadays, inflation's gone sky high, rent's sky high, food is sky high, and there's no end in sight.
Even more alarming is the silent surge in elder homelessness. In just the past year, more seniors people who toiled their entire lives have found themselves on the streets. These are folks who should be relaxing, not fretting about where they'll lay their heads tonight. It's not just their struggle, it's our collective failure. This isn't a problem for distant cities. It's right here in our own community. So we must ask ourselves, when did this become ordinary? And what will it take for us to care enough to act? Let's take a closer look at who's being overlooked. Because once we see their stories, we can't just turn away. Who's becoming homeless in our town? Stroll through certain areas of Ottumwa, especially near downtown along Wabash Street, or behind the bus station, and you'll notice signs of a subtle shift. Not loud, not chaotic, just quiet folks carrying bags resting on concrete steps or waiting for the food truck that arrives near Church Street around noon. It's not a sight most of us recall from our childhood here. Homelessness in Ottumwa today doesn't fit the old stereotypes. It's not just the man with a cardboard sign. It's the woman behind you at Fairway sleeping in her car with her teenage daughter. It's the older man at the laundromat folding donated clothes who once worked nights at the John Deere factory. You might not always spot them at a glance, but they're present. And the faces are evolving. One striking change this year is the rise in people grappling with mental health challenges while experiencing homelessness. According to Homeward, Iowa, nearly 200 individuals across Polk and Wapello counties now report struggling with mental health issues while living unhoused. These aren't mere statistics, they're people trying to stay strong while sleeping, in abandoned vehicles or couch surfing in risky situations. Another group steadily growing is veterans. Yes, some progress has occurred. Fewer are unsheltered than last year, but many remain in limbo, staying in temporary shelters or makeshift tents behind old buildings near Vine Street. Some fought overseas. Now they're battling a different struggle at home. What's increasingly clear is that homelessness in America here in Ottumwa no longer affects just one group. It's touching families, seniors, and young adults aging out of foster care. Some hold part-time jobs but can't cover rent. Others are one eviction away from joining them. This isn't happening on some far-off corner. It's unfolding just blocks from City Hall. So the real question is, how close must this hit before we treat it like the crisis it truly is? Let's examine why it's worsening, because until we tackle the root causes, we're just watching the flames grow. What's really causing homelessness in Ottumwa? People crave simple explanations. Is it an addiction? Idleness? Poor choices? Spend a day speaking with those in shelters or on the streets, and those stereotypes crumble. Instead, you'll uncover complex lives rattled by job losses, soaring rents, medical bills, domestic abuse, or just one stroke of bad luck. The leading cause of homelessness in Ottumwa is no longer in question. It's the shortage of affordable housing. Not just homes slightly below market rates, but truly affordable for those earning under 30% of the area's median income, and there's far too little of it. Angie Arthur, director of Homeward, put it clearly. The greatest hurdle today is housing availability. We simply lack places to move people into, even when they're prepared. Even those with housing vouchers, like Section 8, are trapped. Ottumwa Housing Authority isn't issuing new vouchers and has no emergency spots available. Many families are technically on a waiting list, but in reality, they're just stalled. Waiting, nowhere. And things are poised to worsen. Federal COVID-era rental assistance programs are set to expire by September 2025. When those end advocates predict a fresh wave of evictions and street homelessness, if we're already stretched thin now, what happens this fall? On top of this housing scarcity is inflation. From fuel to food to utilities, costs are climbing. If you're already struggling, you sink deeper. And if you're managing, one missed paycheck, one hospital bill, one car repair, and suddenly you're not managing anymore. So we must ask, how do we stop a flood without first building a barrier? The next part of this story examines how Ottumwa is or isn't tackling this rising wave. Keep watching to see what's being done and what's still falling short. What's being done and what's falling short? Ottumwa hasn't been idle. City leaders know the numbers are climbing, and there's been strong pressure from both locals and service providers to take action. In response, the city has implemented some practical measures. Most significantly, they transformed a former family crisis shelter into 9 temporary apartments for families facing homelessness. It's not a large-scale initiative, but for 9 households, it's the difference between sleeping in a park and having a secure door at night. This move came after growing concern over encampments that had emerged near Turkey Island and other public areas. Residents were split. Some demanded police clear the camps. Others pushed the city to offer housing, not arrests. The council ultimately chose a balanced approach, providing shelter options and advocating for lasting solutions. At the regional level, groups like Homeward Iowa have taken a leading role. They carry out the annual point-in-time count and manage applications for federal homeless assistance grants, roughly $7 million annually across central Iowa. In May 2025, they unveiled a 5-year action plan called the Blueprint to Address Homelessness. It outlines 40 specific objectives, including expanding supportive housing funding, mental health care training, outreach staff, and coordinating eviction prevention efforts. On paper, it's thorough, but in reality, progress is sluggish. The reality is, funding can't keep up with the need. Shelters are consistently at capacity. Service providers are overwhelmed. And when someone is ready to transition to housing after weeks or months in a shelter, there's often nothing available. Vouchers exist, but local housing authorities aren't issuing new ones. Waiting lists are frozen, and many landlords simply refuse tenants with subsidy support. Even when beds become available, some people decline them. Not because they prefer sleeping outside, but because they've faced bad experiences, overcrowded shelters, strict rules, or settings that feel unsafe. Without trauma-sensitive support or adaptable models, people fall through the gaps. That's why some advocates argue the city remains too focused on temporary fixes, warming centers, meal programs, and police intervention, rather than creating systems that permanently end homelessness. The blueprint is a step forward. But without serious investment, it risks becoming just another report gathering dust. So where does Ottumwa go from here? The plans are set, the need is undeniable. But the question is whether the city and its residents are prepared to invest not just in programs, but in lasting results. And in a town where every dollar counts, where will that funding come from? In the next section, we'll examine the political decisions and the consequences of acting too little too late. Are we helping the homeless or pushing them out? Earlier this year, a bill surfaced in the Iowa Senate that drew widespread attention. Senate File 1195, also referred to as SSB 1195. The proposal sought to outlaw camping on public property like parks or sidewalks if county-operated shelters were available nearby. In plain words, it stated that if you're homeless and decline assistance, you could face fines or even jail time. Advocates for the bill claimed it was a method to safeguard public spaces and urge people to utilize existing services. They viewed it as a way to move people off the streets and into systems where they could receive help. But opponents saw a different story. To them, the bill was a poorly disguised effort to criminalize poverty, penalizing those who already have nothing. Lawsuits were threatened. Public outcry intensified. Ultimately, the bill stalled and never passed the full Senate. Yet the debate revealed a deeper issue, a split in how we perceive homelessness, not just in Des Moines, but in places like Ottumwa. Are those living on the streets a public inconvenience? Or are they our neighbors in distress? So far, Ottumwa hasn't taken the route of criminalization. Local police still address complaints and sometimes clear encampments, particularly in public parks or along the Des Moines River, but no city ordinance currently targets unhoused individuals just for existing. That said, Ottumwa hasn't exactly pioneered forward-thinking solutions either. Officials haven't invested in modular homes or small shelter communities. They haven't allocated new funds to mental health outreach teams. Most efforts remain short-term shelters, food distribution, emergency aid rather than systemic. And the outcome? The issue persists. Encampments reappear. People move from one location to another. Outreach workers strive to assist, but there aren't enough of them. And without affordable housing options, their efforts are limited. What's evident is this inaction is still a decision. Choosing not to fund housing means more people sleeping outside. Choosing not to expand mental health support means more individuals trapped in cycles of crisis. And choosing not to shift course means the numbers we're already seeing will only grow. Other communities have explored different strategies. Cedar Rapids introduced a mobile outreach team pairing caseworkers with mental health professionals. Sioux City established a transitional housing site using prefabricated units. Even smaller towns have experimented with church-led safe parking programs providing secure spots for people living in their cars at night. The question remains, what's holding Ottumwa back? As more families teeter on the brink and more seniors exhaust their options, the town faces a critical decision. Will we keep pushing the issue out of view or finally tackle it with the urgency it demands? Because if we delay too long, the harm won't just affect them, it'll impact every one of us. What happens next if we don't act now? As autumn 2025 nears, a quiet but rising unease is settling over towns like Ottumwa. That's when the final phase of federal rental assistance introduced during the pandemic will expire. For many families already struggling to make ends meet, this could be the breaking point. Without that aid, evictions are likely to increase, and with them, the danger that more households will fall into homelessness. This isn't just a money problem, it's also about time. Time is slipping away, not just for local programs to adapt, but for at-risk residents to find solid footing. And one group increasingly vulnerable is older adults. Over the past year, senior homelessness in the Ottumwa area has silently doubled. These are individuals who never thought they'd rely on soup kitchens or sleep in their vehicles after retirement. It's no longer a marginal issue, it's a community-wide red flag. Yet not everything is bleak. There are some encouraging signs worth expanding. The city has added more temporary shelter beds, and organizations like Homeward Iowa are advancing their 5-year blueprint. Veteran homelessness has slightly improved thanks largely to federal programs and local collaboration. But these are modest steps in a system that demands far more. If Ottumwa is serious about changing direction, it can't depend solely on goodwill and volunteer efforts. What's needed now is stronger collaboration among public and private sectors, faith communities, nonprofits, and local businesses. Proven solutions already exist, like Evergreen Home, which pairs stable housing with addiction recovery support. There are also youth-focused shelters being tested in other countries that could be effective here. But buildings and beds alone won't solve it. Mental health care and recovery services are equally critical. Housing without treatment or treatment without stability keeps people stuck in a cycle they can't escape alone. Compassion must go hand in hand with construction. So here's the real question. Can a town like Ottumwa, small in size but full of potential, move quickly enough to prevent this crisis from worsening? Because the opportunity to get ahead is shrinking, and what happens next hinges on the decisions we're willing to make today. Personal reflection. I was raised believing small towns have warm hearts. Ottumwa isn't a struggling big city. It's a community of neighbors, church potlucks, and local pride. Yet learning that nearly 800 people there lack a stable home stirred a mix of shock and sorrow in me. These are folks who mowed our yards, worked our factories, raised our children, and sometimes just hit hard times. What troubles me is the fragile line separating us from them until a sudden illness, job loss, or broken relationship erases it. I'm moved by the contrast between the statistics and the lives they represent. We discuss homelessness in America broadly, but each number holds a story. A grandmother who pawned her ring to pay bills, a teen who never graduated high school, a veteran carrying scars from war. As someone who values fresh starts, I mourn the chances we've overlooked here. Because the plans, the shelters, the strategies, they're blueprints without action, unless we step up as supporters, donors, volunteers, neighbors. I wonder what could happen if this town cared for each of those 779 as we do our own. That's a challenge we must embrace. Conclusion? Homelessness in Ottumwa is more than a number, it's a moral and community challenge for every American town. We've seen the growing struggles of vulnerable groups, the efforts and progress, and the gaps that leave people stranded. Yet we've also glimpsed signs of hope, shelter expansions, the blueprint, and fewer homeless veterans. To truly tackle this Ottumwa, and every community facing homelessness in America must go beyond planning. We need to act with urgency, empathy, and determination, understanding that our towns thrive when no one is left behind. The question lingers: will we rise to the occasion before time runs out?